Hi, Mr. Osborne. Thank you so much for meeting with me today to talk about school safety. My first question for you is, what at school makes you feel safe?
Well, thank you, Echo, for talking to me about this. I really appreciate this. This will hopefully be a good, productive conversation. So, a lot of different things make me feel safe at school. I was thinking about this topic, and there's so many facets to safety. There's safety from, violence on campus, which is rare. But then there's other things too, natural disasters and things like that. And I think the school does a good job, and I feel pretty safe about the preparation for earthquakes, for those kind of natural disasters. We've had that wildfires and various areas of Southern California, and you saw a lot of those communities struggle. And I think the school does pretty well at preparation and planning for those kind of things. I think, for like natural disaster type stuff, they're pretty well prepared for that, as much as one can be.
Yeah, absolutely.
I think I would say probably like the CSOs and all of them around, like checking your ID before you come in and all that. I feel like that makes me feel safe.
Absolutely.
Having the CSOs around, and having a bunch of students around that care for each other, and Mr. P and the staff members that care about me, make me feel really, really safe.
Absolutely, having a community.
Yeah, community helps a lot. And everyone that we encounter, encompass ourselves within the music department, so there's really positive attitude.
Yeah.
So I feel very insulated within our own sect of Milliken.
Absolutely.
A lot of the staff that's around me, I guess, they all make me feel safe. They're all the staff that I've had encounters with are usually pretty understanding. So I think that's cool.
That's good to hear.
I think when all the adults are in the loop, so we're all in good communication, we have a clear system, to deal with things when things occur.
Right.
And so having both communication and a good game plan.
Absolutely.
I think the teachers here are really reliable. I know that if I had a problem, I always go to them. I also think that we do a good job, keeping people off campus who aren't supposed to be on campus. I know it can be a bit tedious, showing the phones and all that, but I think that's been doing a good job because I haven't really had anything that I feel unsafe now. I feel like it does a good job at maintaining.
That's great. And then to add on to that, or counter that, I suppose, what at school makes you feel unsafe?
I guess I see certain student behaviors, and it's hard to tell when there's students that aren't mine, how much is horseplay, how much is serious kind of fighting. But I do see a certain degree of that bothers me, a sort of cavalier attitude among certain students who feel they can talk a certain way to each other, they can talk a certain way to adults, and I feel like a lot of the kind of lower level infractions are kind of just not dealt with anymore. And I do get the point. I think that, there's a concern about over-disciplining students for these kind of minor infractions. So I feel like if there was enforcement of a lot of these lower level infractions, the way students behave with each other, not all students, of course, but, there's a handful that sort of, they use profanity with teachers, they use profanity with each other, and it's just not really dealt with. And I feel that if that were disciplined more, then the other things wouldn't happen, because I think there can be a snowball effect. These things can escalate and then turn into much bigger problems.
Right. I feel like the only thing that makes me feel unsafe is I guess when you go to the restroom and there's all those girls. Because last year I was in the restroom and this girl got thrown against the stall. There was a whole fight. I wasn't in the stall. I was oh. So every time they're hey guys, there's no fight because there's always so many girls in there. But it was the only thing.
Absolutely. It's a party in the
Hey,
bathroom.
restroom.
Walking around campus during in between passing periods, especially because I have to go back and forth on campus now.
Yeah.
I see the CSOs and I see the administration, but I don't always see the administration stepping in when incidences are happening right in front of them.
Okay.
For example, I passed one of our vice principals and students were playing with a rat one of the days it was raining. And they were not my students, and I mentioned it to him, and he goes, well, that's not my problem to solve. Students use a lot of inappropriate language and a lot of play fighting in front of admin, and I don't see them stop it. I see a lot of pushing on campus, and me being small in nature is pretty dangerous walking around at nutrition.
Yeah.
It's kind of, makes me feel unsafe, especially when I've seen students and staff members get assaulted by other people and nothing really happens. There's no real consequences.
Right.
So that makes me feel really unsafe.
Absolutely.
Because there's not a lot of clear definition as to what is allowed and what's not allowed.
What's the line?
Yeah. And there seems to be a lot of exceptions to the rule created.
It's a hard question. The school relatively makes me feel safe, but I feel like, I don't know, probably the bathrooms. Those things, they scare me a little because it's just people that are just, it's never like, it's never I don't know how to describe it, like almost like a welcoming environment. It's people are doing things that they're not supposed to. It almost seems like nobody wants you in there. That's kind of
Right.
When that game plan is disjointed, for instance, since we've been moving, buildings around and stuff, it feels a little unsettling. Usually knowing people's like phone extensions and knowing like where admin is, and so the system does not feel very structured right now. So that's a little unsettling.
I get that. Yeah, because everybody has their own specific like code for their.
Exactly. Yeah.
I think the only thing is just like the congregating of people like really suddenly. Like you'll see it often, maybe you'll have 20, 30 people just kind of just standing there all at once in an area where nobody usually goes. I'll just be out here at lunch and I'll just be like, there's just 20 people here now. I've never seen this many people right there. So I think that's the only thing that makes me kind of just like, whoa, what's going on? But other than that, and like of course the obvious vaping in the bathrooms, nothing really.
I'm glad to hear that. Yeah, so I hear you talking about bringing in more necessary discipline in certain circumstances. So how do you think, additionally to that, we can initiate a safer campus?
Yeah, I mean, it's an interesting question because a lot of this takes money. I think a lot of it wouldn't. I've talked to parents before about situations and they've said that they would volunteer to come in. The problems in the bathrooms, how I often will see large numbers of boys, 15, 20, will just kind of go into a bathroom. Clearly they're vaping or doing something else in there they shouldn't be. And it seems like what we do now is the staff assistants kind of just like chase them off and then they just go somewhere else and they do it there. Sometimes they'll lock a bathroom or whatever. But if we had volunteers where we could, get moms and dads from home to come in, and they've said, I'll stand outside the bathroom, I'll let just 3 in at a time. And I think, to use those kind of resources would be great. It wouldn't cost any extra money. If we did have the money, I would say that we need more staff assistants. I feel they're kind of outnumbered. And again, I think Milliken largely is safe. We don't have, a lot of the big problems a lot of other campuses have with a lot of violence. But again, it's a lot of these low-level things that could get worse. We don't want Milliken to deteriorate at all, It's my home. I've been here 22 years. I feel kind of an ownership over this school. And when you've been here that long and you see kind of the trajectory of which way things are going, you feel, I don't want it to get worse. I want it to get better. So I would love to see more staff assistants hired, and then they could do that. And I'm sure there's other things that I'm not seeing that are going on, and they could be implemented for that. But that seems to be the most obvious thing that you see, where it's so obvious. And I just said, well, the kids are just flaunting that they know that they can get away with it, and there's nothing that can be done. And I think it would improve things a lot. I know in my classes, a lot of the students ask to use the bathroom in class, and I don't blame them because they either don't feel safe or don't feel comfortable using it when there's 20 other people in the bathroom and they look at you askew because they're doing something wrong. They don't want you witnessing it. And so I feel like, this is a school, there should be learning going on, and we should try to enforce as much as we can those things. We don't have to, have suspensions or expulsions for those kind of things, but some kind of consequence. And I think we just need more enforcers out there, whether voluntarily or paid.
I don't know, maybe just like more CSOs or something, but I feel like it's sort of like pretty safe. Maybe more bathroom checks, but I think they're doing that more because every time I go in, there's not that many girls in there anymore.
Okay.
Tangible consequences. Okay. Because everything is undercover and under wraps and not out in the open. It's the lack of transparency makes it really hard when we're all playing. For example, it feels like we're all playing Monopoly, but some people are playing by house rules, and some people are playing by the rules as defined by Monopoly itself, and other people just are positions of power. They get to make up their own.
I see. Yeah, comparing it to a board game. Yeah.
Yeah.
Sometimes it really does.
It really does.
I think this campus does almost as much as it can. But I think the tactics that they use with like doing a lot of welcoming things for newer people, helping people find their groups and stuff like that, that's usually a big play into what I've seen. So maybe some more throughout a school has its different communities. So helping with like trying to fund certain things for those communities to do things. Like arts programs or sports programs, stuff like that.
Like and within pathways too.
Yeah. That's
cool. Definitely communication across the board and having a good system in place. You know, we do have like trials and stuff where, you know, when there's like an emergency, we know certain procedures that we do. So I think the repetition and the reinforcement of what those systems are.
Absolutely.
I think that having, just lines of communication from the students to the administration, which I think has already been kind of, I feel like it's already been beneficial. I don't see how it's really difficult to talk to admin, but I think that can really help create a safer campus, is just continuing to open up those methods of communication, allowing students to go talk to their counselors and to their other people, to their teachers. I think that's really it. That was a good job, yeah.
And similar, I guess, to community, how do you think that we can initiate maybe a more communicative campus in addition to bringing in radio?
I think there definitely should be either some elected body or a committee. We do have site-based decision making where I think there's student representatives and teachers who talk about these issues. I haven't been involved with it in a long time. We used to call it site council back when I used to go to those meetings. This was probably 15 years ago.
I believe these.
Okay. That would be kind of the committee and the organization to do it. We just would need to probably empower them more and allow them to execute some of these decisions and say that this is what the students and the teachers have said. I think only very recently at the last department meeting are we getting briefed from these people, because every department, we have a history teacher or two that go to these meetings, and usually they happen and I have no idea what's even being discussed, but recently they're starting to give them 5 or 10 minutes at these department meetings to brief us what's going on. What do you guys think you should do? We talk to those representatives, they go back to the meeting. It would be great to empower those kind of democratic committees, hear from the students about what their concerns are, and then brainstorm what would be some solutions to make it better, because we all live here, we all have to be together, and it'd be nice if everybody was as comfortable as possible.
I don't know, I feel like those events they have, the cultural fair, these are nice, nice bonding ones.
With Unity Week?
Yeah. Those are cool.
Absolutely.
We don't have a lot of positive experiences that are built around the entire student population. Mm-hmm. I think to date we've had 2 all-school positive assemblies, one being the December Performing Arts one, and then the second one being the Black Lives Matter. Yeah. And so it's really shocking to me that it takes all the way into December for us to have a positive whole school assembly. But at no point are we really, my high school, the community, granted the school is smaller, but I felt like all of us felt a much more part of the high school because there were assemblies at least once a month. For football rallies would happen with all of us together, not just the lunchtime thing. Okay. And the principal was much more forward facing. We had district observations come in and people were introducing themselves to students, which I thought was really awkward. I don't think all the students are on the same page as the staff, and I don't think all of the staff is on the same page because it's not really clear to us what we're doing other than trying to educate you all. Yeah, so it's a lot of uncertainty, and it seems like we're all walking on melting ice.
I like that.
Yeah, because it's there, and it's somewhat tangible, but we don't really know where it's all flowing to.
I like that. Should be a quote.
Yeah.
I think that staff should be more forward with their students. Because a lot of staff they've been doing it for so long that this is their job. These are people that are going to be gone in a couple of years, and I'm not going to see them again. Rather than knowing that these are other people that you're going to be working with for a while, and you need to have that almost build a sense of trust. Obviously not get close with your students, but make it so that you're both perceived as people, not as just a means for your job or whatever you're doing next. So, yeah, I think
That's very well said.
thank you.
Well, so I'm going to talk about cell phones and how I think that's taking away from the communication, because as the adults, it's our first priority to make sure you guys are safe. And so I worry when there's too much disjointed communication, and then kids kind of have the upper hand with the cell phones, and we're not, in the loop with that. It just gets there's sort of a power shift, and I don't think we get to do the best job we can with keeping everything in order.
Absolutely. Yeah, it almost feels like out of your control.
Yes.
And then my last question for you is, this can be looked generally or on a broad way, but how have your views on safety at Milliken been shaped by events going on locally and across the country? Like maybe you see on the news or something.
Yeah, so, I guess fairly negatively. I looked at your questions and I thought a lot about it, and it's a deep question, do I feel safe at work? Overall, yes. It is hard when, you turn on the news and it seems every few weeks there's another shooting in a public place, and there's very little that we can do for that with the way the laws are. Firearms are readily available, and, people can get them, kids or adults. And that's often in the back of my mind, but I still feel that that's a relatively rare occurrence. We're still pretty safe. Most people that end up hurt or worse, it's usually because they know the person, there's some beef that they have going way back. And the way I live my life, I feel I'm, kind of, I don't want to say immune to it, but less likely. There was an incident last year that made me feel very uncomfortable, and that was hard to kind of come to grips with, because I always felt if I was a good person to students and I wasn't harassing them or anything like that or causing any kind of issue, then none of that would come back to me. But it did show me that sometimes there's no rhyme or reason to it. Some people harbor animosities, and it was a bit of a wake-up call. Again, overall, I feel mostly safe from violence and things like that, but as I said, when you see kind of rules flaunted on a daily basis, it does cause concern. When I was a young teacher, I would used to intervene in fights to try to separate kids. I really don't do that anymore, and I'm sorry to say, but I don't know, is the student armed? Am I going to get harmed? And if I intervene in that kind of situation, so it's caused me to kind of go back into my shell a little bit and try not to intervene. But it's just a tough situation, hearing things on the news and then seeing things around in your community. But yeah, again, overall, I would say that safety's done pretty well here. Certainly by comparison, I know a lot of the other schools in the district are suffering far more than us with these kind of disruptive issues. But I remember at the end of the year, it was like we had fire alarms almost every day for a week or two straight, and a lot of just silly stuff, kids doing horseplay and stuff like that. But that, again, you need to at least express to the students, even if there's no harsh consequence, you need to express to them, look, this is distracting, this is bad, this is stuff we don't do in school. And that message has to be very clear and unequivocal, or it will continue and maybe even escalate. And so that's kind of my concern for the safety of students, for myself, for other teachers here, is I would like to see kind of, these other minor infractions kind of go away, or at least have consequences to prevent bigger ones from forming.
That's really great. Thank you so much for meeting with me and for your perspective. I really value that.
I just school shootings are just such a prominent thing that's I hope that doesn't happen here.
Right.
And I think that any school in America is just let's hope. So I think that's what's shaped.
Absolutely. Yeah. Thank you, Gabby.
I feel like the way our school is handling things is similar to the political climate at the moment, which is kind of scary, because people are kind of just doing what they feel should happen instead of discussions. A lot of decisions are made and told to us instead of coming communally to a decision.
Yeah.
And that's really scary. In a lot of ways, it feels much more like a dictatorship than a community.
And wanting to bring more that community with, like people are heard.
Yeah, and a lot of the people that are bringing things up are being silenced, and our expertise is not being valued.
Absolutely. Well, thank you so much, Ms. Liu.
It's made me more grateful for the place that I have right now, because I feel a very good sense of community, and the school is very safe compared to a lot of other areas. But I also can spot injustices and differences between what we could be doing better. So I think it's given me a different perspective on that. Yeah.
Absolutely. Thank you so much, Noah.
So again, sticking with cell phones, I worry that, and I know it probably started with COVID. People got, when we went indoors and stuff, people got used to, there was a lot of fear that took place with all the uncertainty and stuff. And now we've made this transition back, but I think people feel so connected to having that immediate communication with each other that it's become sort of a crutch. And I feel like I think people need to trust that we have a good system in place to make sure that everybody's safe. But also we do need to have the upper hand in what's going on. For instance, if there's a planned fight, if the cell phones weren't there, the communication wouldn't spread. The kids wouldn't know to go to this one location, so that we're having to kind of like run after them. So I feel like because of social media and the constant presence of the phone, there's a distraction, but also I feel like it gives kids like kind of an over empowered stance, like above us. For instance, I told a student the other day that we were I think there's plans to make a little more restrictive cell-phone policy next year. And he said, "My phone, my body." And I'm like, no, you don't get to take a very serious phrase and turn it into that. But I think that a lot of people have that insecurity and that connection, that fear of letting go. You know what I mean? And I mean, we're humans, we're in an environment, we take care of each other. And I feel like that just puts sort of a blocker between us, and the power shift is a little bit odd.
Yeah, it's like glue.
Yeah, it's like a dependency, So I worry about that and how it's kind of shaped things into how we interact with each other now.
Absolutely, dependency is a good word for it.
Yeah, and so I worry about kids' identities right now, and just that sense of self, and like who are they in this place, and it just feels like they're always elsewhere because of that distraction.
And that really shows you care about your students and you're looking out for them, and growing up where they don't have to feel like somebody's always watching.
Right. Yeah, exactly.
About how they look or act.
Right. They should just be able to be here, be present, and connect with their surroundings.
Absolutely. But thank you for these responses.
I guess you hear all those like crazy trends. I think that's really concerning. Because why are people blowing up Chromebooks? They're fine. Why,
I don't
legitimately, why are they doing that? It's like I go into class being like, "Are y'all gonna blow up a Chromebook?" Because I really hope not. I think it's that, and you just hear like all these methods of people just because of social media committing acts of violence for fun, and because they they don't know what else to do.
Right.
But I know that we're getting rid of phones in LUSD soon, so I think that will be a lot better. But yeah, I mean, I don't know. It was passed. We'll see what happens. But I think that's the only thing that really kind of has me on edge. Of course, you have like the massive news coverage stories,
right?
But other than that, there's nothing that I really feel like would directly kind of impact how I feel at Milliken right now.
Okay.
Yeah.
I'm glad to hear that. Well, thank you so much for meeting.
Thank you so much.